And hide this.
Hi.
Are you gonna go there?
And
All right.
all right, guys, welcome. It's 6:05 Tuesday night. Beautiful Bali in Ubud. Here at the Ubud co-working space. For those of you who are joining us online, we do this every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. Like clockwork, please come and join. All right, we got a really great show for you tonight. We've got an update on the Bitcoin's 101 class. It's coming up this month. We do that every second Saturday. We're going to talk a little bit about the price. It's a little depressing, but we do that every week, so I think it's obligatory. We'll make it quick. Will is going to take us through the Bitcoin number of the week. Interesting stories to cover, but it's going to be an abbreviated news night. We got the bugging of the U.S. Fed. We had a person sneak a microphone into the Fed. Eddie, you posted that story. Good stuff. We're going to talk about that. And China, we got some interesting posts on Bitcoins in Bali about China making some of its own deals. And we've also got the Circle company expanding internationally. But like I said, we've got an abbreviated news hour tonight because we've got a very special guest, Immanuel Bryson-Haynes, who has been living on Bitcoin for the last, I don't know, how many months?
3 months now.
Yeah, 3 months. Traveled around the United States and Mexico. Lived to tell the tale. Going to talk a little bit about that experience and also a bit about the gift culture and Burning Man, right?
Yep.
All right. Looking forward to that. All right, let's kick things off here. All right. Let's see. For those of you to the show, it's a conversation about Bitcoin. And we only get together once a week, and in between we post stories on this Bitcoins in Bali group. So we have a bit of an online conversation, and then we get together once a week and talk about the stuff that shows up here online. So if you haven't already, join the group, join the discussion, and of course join us in person if you can.
And Gary, we could, like for the questions, any question about tonight's topic, please don't be hesitant to the comment section.
So that's the comment section for this Bitcoins filter event posted at the top, right?
Yes.
So if you're online and you have a question, post them here, and we'll take a look at that towards the end.
Exactly. And our friends in South Africa, Peter, he's gonna administer the people, our friends out there.
It's a truly international evening here. All right, cool.
How many people do you have watching the Google Cast?
It varies. It varies. It wildly varies. Could be 3 or 4 people on there right now. So yeah, I'm a little nervous.
2.5.
Yeah.
Funny how it changed the energy between 3 people and 3,000 people.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, post your questions there and keep an eye on that and let us know. A little bit of housekeeping. Every second Saturday, actually every second Saturday and every third Saturday, we have a Bitcoin 101 class. The next one is October 11th, the English class. So if you or somebody you love wants to get their hands on Bitcoin, it's a Bitcoin introduction. You pay a little bit of money and we reimburse you in Bitcoin, and we also teach you how to take care of it. So you leave with a bit of Bitcoin and a little bit of knowledge about Bitcoin. That's the idea. We do it in English.
You do the other event, like bring Bitcoin and get the VPN.
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, there should be some people there that might want to talk to you. So if you want to go the other direction, you can crash the party.
If you're selling, let me know.
So that's the English edition on the second Saturday. We've also got the Bahasa Indonesia version on the third Saturday. We're really trying to reach out to the Indonesian-speaking population. We've got a lot of merchants around town that accept Bitcoin, so we're kind of approaching the merchants and their staff to try and get them in there and get some interest in Bitcoin. So that's the way we're approaching it. But if you happen to have any Indonesian-speaking friends, we'd love a referral. We've got a few people in the class already, but we're looking to fill up these 15 spots that we've got. So help us out and spread the word if you can. All right, on to the price. 378.53. Obviously, you know, I've been sick for the last week, so I'm sure that's where the price dip is coming from. I think the news did get out that I wasn't feeling well, so yeah, people were a little worried, but I'm okay. So I'm sure we can expect a rebound. No, I have no idea why the price is taking a dip. I've had lots and lots of discussions about it. One theory is that because there are so many merchants adopting Bitcoin, and they are turning around and selling Bitcoin as soon as their customers make their purchase, that there could be downward pressure, lots of new Bitcoins hitting the market and driving the price down. But that's speculation. We don't really know. But for the moment, we are a little bit down from last week. On the bitcoin.co.id, you can see that the price in Indonesian rupiah has dipped below the $5 million rupiah mark. The last price was 4.7 million. We're used to seeing that up over 5, way up over 5.
Oh, wow.
The market cap is hovering just above $5 billion US dollars. So you can see that we've had the precipitous drop in price, and this is the price. This is the value of all bitcoins on the planet, and we are right around that significant psychological barrier of $5 billion. Interestingly, we also usually talk about this BMIX score. This is the rank of Bitcoin amongst the other 190 currencies around the world. We're used to seeing that number at around 89. But now we're at 100. So we've come down in the ranks. We're between Yemen and Dominican Republic. So I don't know. We're not keeping good company these days. The other thing that we've been talking a lot lately about is the volatility. If you've got Bitcoins and you hold them for 3 days, you can expect them to be 5.7% more or less than what you had them, what you bought them at. So if your profit margins are below 5%, you might not want to be holding your money in Bitcoins because you've got that kind of volatility. But I'll just state again that if you look at 1 year and the 1 year trend, there's a definite downward trend in volatility. So really, as more and more things are represented in the world with Bitcoin, the volatility goes down, and the trend is unmistakable that volatility is getting less and less. That should make it more and more useful.
Can we look at the month trend, just out of curiosity?
Well, I first had up that's a trailing 30-day figure, 5.7.
I think that's the year figure, isn't it?
It's 1 year, yeah.
This is 1 year?
Yeah.
Monthly 30-day volatility?
Oh no, across 1 year. Fine.
Well, because this is, well, I guess that's a good question. Because here's the 1 year,
Why doesn't that number change? That's weird.
and this I believe is the 30-day trailing.
That looks, it would be much
Monthly.
higher if it was the yearly.
I mean, I'd love to be corrected if I'm wrong. That was my understanding.
The Bitcoin volatility on another website was around 3 point something%.
Ah, really? So a lower figure.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just measure it differently. I don't know how. Maybe they just use different exchanges.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's still way higher than it really needs to be to be viable, unless you've got a closed loop where all of your employees take Bitcoin and all of your income comes in Bitcoin. Yeah, unless you've got that closed. Oh, Vinny?
Yeah, we've got a first question. First thoughts on Bitcoin price.
Okay.
If I'm not interrupted.
No, please.
All right. So, Peter, if mining doesn't cost you anything into power, then you can drop it for nothing. Who doesn't pay for electricity? Think.
I don't know, someone in office space
Solar,
who turns the computer on the weekend?
solar, micro hydro,
Oh.
wind.
Yeah.
People who live in cold climates who are paying it for competing anyway.
People who have a full membership in Google.
Yeah, mine.
Who is it? Chinese government. That's what he said.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's interesting because, you know, the Chinese government, well, and the U.S. government are having a bit of a currency war. We're going to talk about a story later about China. And I don't know, I suppose it's a valid theory. It's impossible to really tell. But
Most of the hashing comes out of China. So
they're able to map the hashing, where the hashing power is coming from.
Yeah, I just heard in a podcast that
Yeah.
China's the place where we get all the hashing power from.
But at the same time, to say the only cost is electricity is fallacious. It ignores the hardware costs, it ignores the rental space costs, it ignores the overhead, all of the other things that go into that. On top of that, you know, nobody, to the best of my knowledge, is actually manufacturing ASICs in China. They're importing parts and assembling them there. But, you know, what does it actually cost to buy an ASIC in China versus what does it cost to buy an ASIC in, say, Thailand, where they're actually assembled and built? So simply look at the electricity cost kind of misses the point.
Okay.
No.
Does that answer your question, Peter? Right. Okay.
Okay, great. Excellent. Oh, there's your slides. Stuff took a while. All right, so moving on. Now that we're done with the volatility and price discussion, we're going to move into Will's Bitcoin number of the week, which is
695. Any guesses on what that is?
A vague sexual reference?
Yeah. Well,
It's
apart from the
it's a family
five.
show, Eddie.
Apart from the five. No, it's not. Don't try this at home, kids. All right, this is about transactions. I was just looking at the number of transactions going through the network each day, and you can see it's on an exponential rise, which is good. But I was really interested in what the actual value of a transaction is at the moment. So I just pulled this information from blockchain.info, lots of charts and numbers, and I did a little calculation, and it shows you what the transactional value has been over time. So this is the graph, and you can see, you know, Bitcoin wasn't worth a lot in the early days, but since these latest rises in value, you can see that, you know, it's gone up. It kind of tracks the price of Bitcoin, but it also is decaying over time, which is what you'd expect if more merchants are taking it. So to me, I was trying to look.
Sorry, I'm being stupid. The chart represents what? It represents the value of transactions, the number of transactions?
Dollars per transaction.
Bitcoin per transaction.
No, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at dollars per transactions because I want to compare it with other payment networks to be an indicator really of where we need to be if it's becoming a major payment system for actual merchant
So it's the
transactions.
average dollars per transaction. So it's about $500 per transaction is the average transaction.
Yeah.
Average transaction value, is that another way to say this?
Average transaction value on Bitcoin. So
Are we reaching quite close to the capacity?
not even close. 1/7, I think, is roughly 7 transactions per second is the limit, the current limit, and I think we're at about 1 transaction per second average.
Where does that limit come from?
1 megabyte per 10-minute block, artificial limit. So we can expect that to be lifted over time. But this graph, or this page here, shows all the major transaction networks. So we've got Visa there, coming in at, what was it, $16 billion per day. MasterCard at 9.8 billion. So I took these numbers here and divided by how many transactions they're doing. So Visa's doing 212 million per day in transaction volume. And if you divide one by the other, you get this little list. So Visa's their average transaction is $78. MasterCard 105, PayPal at 52. So we're looking at around $50 to $100 for payment transactions. Then you've got Western Union, which is 341, which is more remittances, and Bitcoin here at close to $700 per transaction. So that kind of tells me that most people are in Bitcoin for trading, because we'd expect the value to be closer to about the $50 mark if we were actually using it.
Something doesn't smell right.
Yeah?
Yeah. How many $695 Bitcoin transactions have you performed?
I've done way higher because my transactions are to fund an exchange.
Right.
Right? And so that lifts the average, right?
Yeah, I understand that.
What do you say, Rick?
Just doesn't match my experience with what I see in Bitcoin transactions. And when I go to the exchanges, right, and I look at the trades that are happening, there aren't a lot of trades that are happening for more than one Bitcoin.
But that's off the blockchain, right?
Ah, okay.
And then when I move my money out of that exchange, I put it to my wallet, and then they'll give me that then it goes onto the blockchain.
Gotcha.
So, you'd expect it to be higher than this because, people have bought houses and boats with Bitcoin.
We are getting you buy a few coffees and things from America with Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Clear Cafe.
Yeah, it's slowly moving down, right?
It'd be hard to eat $695 with the Clear Cafe.
Yeah.
It'd be full.
Yeah.
Is there any data available on trends?
Well, this is it. I mean, this is the trend that I'm showing, is that I've got all the average Bitcoin transaction prices over time here by dividing one by the other. So you. Yeah, well, it's also distorted by one-off transactions worth tens of millions of dollars. So Mt. Gox got hacked around here, so there was a lot of movement of big funds. Around June, somewhere was that $18 million Silk Road auction. So that would have peaked something up here, and then some of these little peaks here might be private Bitcoin transactions of huge value, but we don't really know. But the trend is what we're looking at, and we've got a long way to go. I think we've got a long way to go. Yeah, I could. Spreadsheet magic. Won't do it right now. But yeah, that's the number of days. 695 is our current average, and we're hoping to bring that down. One thing that I didn't look at was, I couldn't find the numbers on, was what is the volume for SWIFT, international money transfer, for remittances, what the average wire transfer is, and their volume. So that would give us much more of a clue.
What about Apple Pay?
Oh, that'd be zero, right? Oh, right now. Yeah. But actually, the Visa and MasterCard will give you an idea of what Apple Pay will do per transaction. Yeah, and that's my number of the week.
695. All right.
695. Deep.
I'm doing my part to bring that average down by going to Clear Cafe and
Me too.
yeah, and generally not moving around $695 at a time.
Yeah.
But I'm a small fry.
So what's the actual dollar per day?
On the left, 49
Oh, it
million.
is. Oh, sorry.
49 million of Bitcoin versus 16.5 billion for Visa.
And these guys are at what, 47,000 transactions per
2,000 average, 47,000
peak.
Yeah. And I think I did a little of extrapolation once. Just don't quote me on it. But like it looked like Bitcoin was growing at a rate in which it would match Visa transaction volume in 6 years if it continues to grow at its current rate. So that graph will.
And as it grows, Visa will probably shrink, right? You are taking the shrink.
Yeah, it should be.
But the thing is, that number could just be people shuffling their wallets. Though.
Oh, that's true.
That is true. Yes.
Quick question. That chart indicates number of transactions excluding popular addresses. What does that mean?
I think there's like Satoshi dice and these things that are moving around dust all the time.
Yeah.
And their outliers or skew the graph are useful to remove and to see the trends, is my understanding.
It's people like Gary, they're trying to remove the outliers.
Anyway, thanks, Will. That was good stuff. All right. Now we're going to move.
Mixes as well. Mixes.
What's that?
Mixes.
Nexus.
But don't mixes just go around?
Oh, like a
transacting
coin join
credit
things?
and
Yeah.
To try and shroud the traceability.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
If
can go around.
That could affect the number of transactions, sir. All right. We're going to move into the news section and talk about the posts that were put into Bitcoins in Bali over the last week or two. And the first one, this is one of my favorite radio programs. I've been listening to this for 15 or 20 years. This program has been on U.S. public radio, This American Life. And this is the latest episode. You can listen online for free. And this woman here was hired by the Fed based on an internal report that used to be confidential. You can see a highly confidential report written by Columbia professor David Beim. And what he suggested the Fed do is stop hiring yes men. Basically hire people that can question the status quo. You know, it's not people that aren't going to roll over and can really kind of take it to the banks, because one of the Fed's functions is to regulate the big banks and to make sure they are not pulling any funny business, right? It's a big job, and you know, there's a bit of, I don't know if it's Stockholm syndrome or what you call it, but when these regulators live on site at places like Goldman Sachs, they tend to go native. They have a term for it in the show. I listen to it. It's really quite entertaining, but you can't spend too long at Goldman Sachs or you start drinking the Kool-Aid and it's hard to shake your finger at them anymore. So, but this woman that they hired this woman based on this guy's recommendation to hire some firecrackers. And she went in there and started asking a bunch of difficult questions. And I don't know if she started recording before or after she realized her job was in jeopardy. But essentially, she started recording the conversations between her and her Fed bosses, and between her Fed bosses, and the people at Goldman Sachs. She was assigned to Goldman Sachs. Really good soap opera stuff. You know, and they do a really good job of dramatizing it in the radio hour. Highly recommend it. Gives you a little window into the Fed, and you know, the Fed. It's kind of U.S. centric, and I know we have an international crowd here, but what the Fed does really affects a lot of our lives. And so I hope you don't think it's too U.S. centric to post this story, but it's fascinating to find out how you'd think it'd be more sophisticated than it is. And then you listen to these people talking, and you realize they're fallible human beings with a really monumental task. And well, they do a pretty good job of demonstrating that it's not done very well. So please check it out. Well worth the hour listen, and it gives a little window into the Fed and things that go wrong there. So check that out. That was you, Eddie, that posted that, right? That was good stuff. I didn't know about that one.
I was so psyched when I saw that in my podcast. I'm like, yes!
Yes, I've got an hour of entertainment. Okay. Next story, China to start direct currency trading with the euro. And this is related to the Fed, I would say, because China's doing this in response to Fed policy. The Federal Reserve in the United States is printing money, right? And so it's basically ruining the integrity of the dollar as a mode for countries to settle their balance of accounts. So big countries, like the BRICS nations, for example, are setting up their own development banks. We've talked about this in the past. And they're also setting up their own trade agreements. This is one such trade agreement where China is able to settle its balance of accounts with the euro and not go through the dollar at all. Now, when China, big countries like this, make arrangements like this, it reduces the overall demand for the dollar. So as the Fed is printing money, and as people are using less and less and less of it, well, we can only expect there to be inflation.
Gary, sorry, you mentioned development banks. Can you elaborate a bit more on what that is?
Sure. You've got the IMF, right? That's what we're all used to. And when countries have problems, the IMF swoops in and kind of cuddles them and gives them money and gives them liquidity and helps them out. But it's a dollar-based institution, although they do have their own currency. And there's a lot of other things that happen in the name of development, right? And that is part of what the IMF does. It helps with countries settling their balance of accounts with financing, right? But it's it's kind of a U.S. based or a Western organization. And because of all of the funny business that has gone on since 2008, well, some countries are at the short end of the stick based on the policies of big banks like the IMF. So the BRICS nations have recently, within the last month or two, I forget when we put it up on the screen, they developed their own development bank, and presumably they will also help developing nations with their balance of account financing, but also they can settle balance of accounts without going through the dollar. And to me, that was the real heart of the story. Does that answer your question, or do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, yeah, I'm just a bit kind of interested in what exactly the development banks look like in these developing countries. Are they so they're not owned by the country's government? Or?
No, it's a supra-government organization. I've actually got, we're going to talk about the IMF in a second. I've got that pulled up. The new bank, I forget what it's called, but it's, there's a nice picture of Putin and China and India that are all kind of like getting ready to huddle up and break.
Away from the US dollar?
Yeah, to avoid the US dollar is, well, I don't think that was the headline they were going after, but it's it's a clear shot across the bow for the present global monetary system that it's changing. But we don't have all the details on that one yet. Yeah, stay tuned. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fireworks. So anyway, this is just part of that trend that we've been talking about. And I've got some other stories posted here. The future of the dollar is reserve currency. This was a good article. It's a little bit old. It's a year old, but I learned some things about what makes a reserve currency a reserve currency. And the dollar is the current reserve currency, and it's really because of the liquidity of the dollar, a country can hold a large amount of dollars, and therefore when there's exterior pressure on the price of their own currency, they can use the dollar on international forex markets to control the value of their currency versus other currencies. So their imports don't get too expensive, or their exports don't get too expensive for exterior nations.
So other companies will have just a big stockpile of USD.
Countries will have a big stockpile of USD so they can manipulate their own currency.
That's
yes.
strange.
It seems strange, yes, but it's true. Yeah, it seems strange to me that it's just common for people to manipulate currency, because currency and the exchange rates between currencies is a market indicator, right? It's a way to judge whether one country is economically more powerful than another, and when these things are manipulated, it's not possible for outside observers to see those disparities. Right? It's an opposite. It's like if you were a surgeon and you couldn't see the heart rate, or someone was manipulating the heart rate, you'd make different decisions about how to treat the patient, and that goes on, wildly throughout the world. And well, we're seeing the wheels come off, I think.
Isn't that a little bit like what legal was about? Manipulation.
Yeah, the manipulation of the gold and silver markets. Yes, that was done by individual companies.
Was it legal about gold and silver? I thought that was about currency.
I'm not sure.
Legal was incorrect reporting of certain interest rates to manipulate.
Yeah.
Currencies. Anyway, I don't know the details of it.
Yeah. Well, gold and silver are manipulated. Currencies are manipulated. It's it's done right out in the open. I don't know why more people aren't upset about it, but it is hard to understand, and it's not working as well anymore.
And the margin as well. I mean, the manipulated margin. Like people, traders are borrowing money.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Good point. Yeah, there people are, they might have $1 million in reserve and they're trading with $10 million is what he's talking about. So when something unravels and people have to basically do a margin call, that can have a cascading effect, and it's dangerous. But it happens every day.
What are your thoughts about Bitfinex? They offer margin trading in Bitcoin.
I guess, I'm not a margin trader. I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. I'm always kind of sad when I see it as with mixed. I usually have two minds when I see Bitcoin start adopting the ways of the modern financial system, because
yeah, I was reading about this. There's an article about what do you think the dip was and whether it's this margin stuff. And one of the comments was that it's a sign that it's reaching maturity. And there was an article last week on the guy who did the X Prize. He's worked by
Elon Musk.
Somebody Demondeus or something. Anyway, he was saying there's 6 stages to anything. They all start with D, but the first one, I can't remember what the word was, but did you read that one?
I think so, yeah.
The first stage is the pioneers who are inventing the technology. Then you've got the early adopters. Then you've got the disruption, and venture capitalists come in and fund all the startups. And we're just starting in the what do they call it? Dematerialization. The one that the Wall Street gets in on, and we're starting to see all the Wall Street institutes and vehicles being built on. And then there's 2 more stages, right? One is the old institutes fall, and the last one is
democratization, maybe.
Demonetization, I think. This was where the money just. Well, that's the end. So it's interesting that it was like we're in the second half of it, and he picked the next step after that when the Wall Street institutes start to reinvent themselves and fall down is only like 18 months away. The start of that, so really rapid. So maybe it's a sign of maturity, but it's a crappy thing because the mechanism of margin allows me to manipulate the market. Yeah. So.
Rewards, rich people, rich traders.
I don't even think you need to be rich. You could just, as long as you've got enough trust from some party that's going to give it to you. Say I can get 101 leverage, then I can get all my money and try and push the price down and put my bet on that 101 leverage, and I win all the way to the bank.
It's a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, it increases turnover velocity, which is good for the market. On the other hand, since we have a relatively small market cap, it does open the possibility for a large player to come in and manipulate, right?
Yeah.
That article is in Cointelegraph, if anybody wants to read it. Most everybody was actually generally positive about the rise of these tools, saying exactly what Willie was saying, that these represent a certain achievement of maturity in the marketplace. But there was one commentator who analogized them to weapons of financial mass destruction, saying, is it really a good idea for us to put WND in the hands of geeks? So, there are 2 sides to it for sure. But generally speaking, they're just tools, right? The tools themselves are not evil.
And it's interesting in that, it adds liquidity. As people get in there, it adds liquidity, which is a good thing. But it also adds volatility as something we don't want, because it's not we can't use it as a currency until volatility goes down. So yeah.
Fascinating.
Is it possible for Bitcoin to be as manipulated as fiat currencies and everything else that's being manipulated now?
Yeah, certainly.
You can't do fractional reserve banking.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Theoretically.
that's what they're trying to do with exchange traded funds and things of this ilk.
To clarify, I mean, like, you could do it, I mean, but that would be like running an old style exchange like Mt. Gox. Like,
Exactly.
if they were doing stuff properly with like blockchain and audited kind of like,
Yeah,
hashes and stuff.
you can't do it on the core Bitcoin, but you can do it through extrapolation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you can always.
But you can't. That's different from fiat currencies. You can manipulate fiat at core, where you can't do that with Bitcoin unless you change the whole algorithm.
This is interesting with foreign exchanges. It's the biggest markets in the world, and you see less outside of the government instigated stuff. You see less effect from manipulation. It's the current markets like gold, which is like small, 2 trillion, I think, is gold, and the currency markets are, I don't know, someone know?
300 trillion maybe?
Yeah, it's huge.
It's an unknown number.
huge.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of the advantages Bitcoin has over the fiat system. We know how many Bitcoins there are. We don't know how many dollars there are.
Yeah, exactly. It's what do you use? M2, M3?
Yeah, yeah. Take a guess.
There is another manipulation a friend of mine brought up that actually I haven't been able to refute. I'd love to hear if anybody else here can, which is that the government could get a shit ton, hold on to it, and then flood the market at a shitty time and drop the price.
Well, there's that. There's this comment about 75% of the Bitcoin is held by hardcore Bitcoiners who will not sell their Bitcoin at any price because they support the currency. That was one of the arguments.
It's the same like shares in a company. Like if you have like shares in a company, even if the share price is at like 1 cent, and someone comes in and tries the whole market capitalization judged by the exchange is like $1 million. An investor comes in and says, put $1 million in the market, I can buy the company. If the majority of your shareholders don't want to sell and they're holding long, the actual exchange valuation of an entity is not indicative of the true valuation of the entity. So the exchanges can be manipulated on the share market and on currency exchanges, but that doesn't necessarily reflect the true value of the asset.
So the safety there is simply that most people aren't going to sell their Bitcoin.
I can't speak for the people on the network.
Well, we know already 5% of the Bitcoin is owned by or mined by Satoshi, and he has never spent, or that group's never spent any of that. So we can assume that they're supporting the network at 5%. Yeah. Anyway.
Thanks for that. Vinny, do we have a...
No.
Oh. You're just telling me about time. Okay, yes. Let's see here.
Exchanges aren't an indication of the value of Bitcoin. Then what is an indication?
All the exchange indicates is the recent valuation of transactions. The last immediate price of sale. If you need to spend your Bitcoins or convert your Bitcoins into another fiat or buy something with Bitcoin, then the exchange rate is important if the merchants and other people in the market are going off the exchange rate for their valuation.
Right. I think the point, like, if you look here, the value of all Bitcoins is $5 billion, hypothetically. But if everybody tried to sell their Bitcoins and turn that into $5 billion at the same time, you wouldn't end up having $5 billion worth, right? The actual trades are very thin based on the total Bitcoins that are outstanding. So it's hard to say. But in the interest of time, guys, I am going to refer you to the rest of my tabs and the information that's there. That'll be in the show notes. I want to turn it over to our guest speaker here, Manu, who's been living on Bitcoin. Put his money where his mouth is. Literally? Yeah, maybe literally. And he's got some slides here. Let me just set it up here. I've got to. Do I have to share something else on Hangouts? Let's see here. Screen share.
Screen share. No, this one.
This one.
Then where's the slide?
Is this this one?
Share.
Share that.
There you go.
All right. Okay, wait. Hopefully.
Then you want.
Oh, and I'll put this up here. Oh, what happened?
I did some really nicely decorated slides for you guys. Put a big effort in.
Is it on your right?
They're really fancy.
Oh, you know what? I have to get out of this. And then drag this over here. There we go.
Can we go
All right.
play? Can we play?
Yes. Take it away, Manu.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, so I unbanked about 3 months ago. I haven't had enough of the banking system and went full crypto. It was kind of a little bit scary. But it was all right in Ubud. In Ubud, there's, we have engineered something of a crypto economy here. I can survive. I can get my juices so I don't die. And I can always come and see Gary for an exchange, or I can't use Oscar's exchange anymore because I don't have the bank accounts. So I'm reliant on decentralized exchanges. And all in all, it was quite exciting. Unfortunately, the price of Bitcoin has almost halved since then. So we might go to the next slide. So the first thing that's kind of killed me has been the volatility. Yeah, that's been watching that. So I got in at about 8 million rupiah, and where are we at now? We're just about 5. So it's almost halved. So that's kind of harsh. If I have a little bit in other altcoins, but barely anything. So I am very vulnerable to that volatility. One thing interesting to point out on volatility is my salary gets paid in Bitcoin from my Indonesian film company. So that evens out over time. So I get a salary, I get a payment at when Bitcoin's at 8 million. And then next month it crashes. So I just get, I'm still getting like, I get a whole lot more Bitcoin if the price is low. So over time, even though the price is moving with volatility, which hurts it as a store of value, hurts my overall monetary holdings, the volatility doesn't bother me for actually the new money coming in because it's balancing itself out over a month. Next slide. So, what does one need in order to be decentralized and travel around the world? Unbanked and travel around the world. So I went to America. I went down to Mexico, and I went to LA. I went to Silicon Valley, specifically to find people in the Bitcoin space and meet other technologists and economists and do some meetups and develop things. The first thing that I do is, of course, I'm giving preference to merchants and vendors that do accept cryptocurrency for payment. So if I can find a place to eat in where I'm at that accepts Bitcoin, that's the first place I'm going to go. And what I've found with this is, now that I don't have any, and I still keep a little bit of like cash spending money, which I don't want to get rid of unless if I can't help it as a backup. What I'm finding is it's automatically drawing me always to a very interesting crowd, no matter where I'm going. I'm always meeting other decentralists. I'm always meeting other crypto enthusiasts, because if I don't go and find those people,
you can't eat.
Yeah, I can't eat. So it acts as a very strong incentive. Yeah, exactly. So I can get my flights with btctrip.com, which is pretty cool, and I can go to like restaurants and other merchants to spend Bitcoins for services and foods and things like that when I'm traveling around. One of the most valuable tools I had with me was my decentralized exchange on my Cilium, on my Android platform. So whenever I'd arrive at a new location, I just put my new location into the app, and it would tell me all the people that were around me that had Bitcoin. And actually, even in a remote part of Mexico, the city called Puebla, which is quite small, I actually found a guy on my Cilium that was buying and selling Bitcoin. So actually, even out in Mexico, I managed to find a way to get some currency, some local currency for. And in Mexico, Bitcoin adoption is not very strong yet. There was no restaurants accepting Bitcoin there, so I did have to do some exchange to get some pesos. There's also one on on Apple now called Hive, which has a decentralized exchange function built into called Waggle. Seems to work on Bluetooth, so it doesn't really have like really the best range. I haven't been able to get any benefit out of that yet.
You just wander around.
Yes, every now and then I turn it on for a bit of a waggle. But, as of yet, I haven't found anyone.
Green Address now offers exchange through Facebook and Twitter as well. So it gives you another wallet with another set of options.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. I lose my anonymity though, so I'm going incognito. So mycelium allows me to do the exchanges all anonymously, peer to peer. And I met a bunch of people through the mycelium platform across America. Met up with them in person, got to meet a fellow crypto enthusiast, exchange some stories, sell some Bitcoin, get some USD, and keep rolling on my way. The final option, if I could not find anywhere that would accept Bitcoin and I could not find anyone to exchange Bitcoin, was I had to convince people that they needed some Bitcoin. That was my final option. And I did that quite a lot, actually. I'm like, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? Bitcoin's amazing. I will train you. I'm a Bitcoin trainer. I'm a lecturer. I'm traveling. I will train you on the technology for free. And then you could buy something. So I found by being totally unbanked, I'm actually becoming like a viral influence on people to get them unbanked as well. So I probably got about 30 people on Bitcoin wallets through my travels, taught them about what Bitcoin was, and got them some Bitcoin in exchange for another good trick I found was I'd go to dinner and dinner with some friends and talk about Bitcoin over dinner. And by the end of it, say, hey, would you like to get some Bitcoin and you can pay my bill? That was a good one that worked as well. What do we have next on the slides? Nothing happened. Yeah, it feels great. It feels good to be off the fiat system. It feels good to have total control over my money. I'm not relying on any banking system or ATMs. I've got it always. It's always with me on my phone and my laptop, and I encrypt my wallets and back them up into the cloud. So even if I lost all my tech, I can still download my wallet and install my wallet on another device so I can access my funds again. So when I was traveling, I wasn't subject to using. I used to do ATMs, use ATMs for my Indonesian rupiah card, for example, and then I'm getting fees and bad exchange rate, so I could skip across that whole system and just do direct exchanges with people at the market rate. And Bitcoin worked very good as an international currency in that respect. So that was good. Yeah, it was very convenient in skipping the bank fees. It was not very convenient in not having anywhere really to spend it yet. What do we have next on slides? Yes, I'm very happy to be back in a place where there is an active crypto economy here in Auckland. Of all the places I went, even in Silicon Valley, in one co-working space called the Hacker Dojo, which was nowhere near as nice as Ubud.
Yes.
It was just this big concrete block. And you could pay with Bitcoin there, and there's a Bitcoin ATM there. And the Bitcoin ATMs always seem to charge really nasty fees. It's like 10%. It's like really.
Can I just comment on that?
Yeah.
So I run a lot of Bitcoin ATMs in Australia.
Yeah.
We were initially pretty reasonable at around 5%.
Mm-hmm.
But then the government came up with this GST, 10% goods and services tax.
On Bitcoin.
Yeah, on the whole price of Bitcoin.
Wow.
So that's the source of.
So now you're at 15%.
Well, I actually made it to 11%.
Wow.
Because I'm just basically putting myself out of business so I don't reach that limit.
Yeah.
Just to try to get people to.
For adoption, yeah.
Yeah, just to try and get people to get them to change their stance.
I mean, see, that's the power of the decentralized exchange. Once you're running a decentralized exchange, you're not subject to any
banking fees
or government taxes or the problems that come with centralization.
Couldn't you run those ATMs through a non-profit, through a private foundation, which makes them not subject to GST?
No.
You can't run them.
I was going to say, isn't this a reflection? Is this a reflection of Australia naming Bitcoin's property, not a financial
commodity?
Yes,
Commodity,
right?
right?
Yeah.
We couldn't do that because, well, the tax office has a very tight rein on the tax exempt status for organisations. They don't call them foundations in
The tax
Australia.
office has
I mean,
no
if-
jurisdiction over private foundations because they're outside the tax system.
Even so, I mean, this is all, again, you're all digging back into the old system here. This is all the old way of doing things. I mean, if you really wanted to push adoption,
Sounds like
You-
it's the primitive way of doing it.
push out of, well, I mean, they're just making Bitcoins, they're just regulating them out of existence because you're going through a centralized entity in order to provide that service to society. If you if you really wanted to push adoption, help people to understand and learn how to use decentralized exchanges, help the technology go viral.
That's what we're doing
If
as well.
1 in 100 people across Australia had mycelium wallet running and knew how to use it, no one would need local Bitcoins, which is centrally controlled. No one would need centralized exchanges. No one would need ATMs. All those things would be redundant, and people would be interacting directly with one another in order to facilitate exchanges across fiat and crypto.
Yeah, one of the kind of hidden benefits of this tax ruling is that it does actually decentralize exchange because it puts all the Australian Bitcoin exchanges out of business instantly, moves all the exchanges offshore, and forces Australian traders to decentralize and not hit that limit where they have to register.
Yeah, it seems like the central governments are just shooting themselves in the foot by
Yeah.
providing incentives for people to go off the grid even more.
Exactly, yeah. That's really quite funny to watch.
Yeah, well,
Funny yet painful.
it can't be good for your ATM business, unfortunately.
Well, we'll work around it. I mean, the ATMs aren't going anywhere. They're too expensive to do that. Just lost all money that I'll lose spent on getting them out of there anyway. And we'll work around it so that traders can lease ATMs, I guess, until they hit their limit. And then another trader to get in. Yeah. That'd be fun.
So one of the final point I just wanted to talk about briefly was, going up to the reason why I went to Northern California and Silicon Valley and I went to an Ethereum meetup, met Vitalik and met some economists, some Bitcoin core devs, some other pioneers building crypto systems. I've been looking at systems in relation to gift-based economics. I was up there and a friend offered me a ticket to Burning Man, and I didn't really know anything much about Burning Man.
That was an incredible gift.
Yeah, right. So I looked online and I bang, gift-based economy, free from rules. So I went out there, I had no expectation. I only had a sleeping bag and some water, so I kind of did it really without the safety cord. I knew people, but they'd already gone in at that point. I couldn't contact them. What I found was this anarchistic society. Everyone was doing whatever they wanted, total free expression and no rule sets. Everyone was just living freely. There was no commerce, not even barter, because barter is a form of commerce. I give you something and because I want you to give me something back with perceived equality of exchange. But gifting is even different again. People would just start, it was a society of total abundance, and everyone would just share and just give. And money stopped being a media or a barrier that was stopping people from connecting with one another. They had all these bars and different things set up for people to just for sharing, just for love, And you go and sit at a bar, and if you went I want one beer, they would just say, piss off, because if you go into a normal bar here now, give me one beer, you get your beer, because money is dictating the exchange between human beings. Over there, it's not about money anymore. You sit down and you say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What's your name? How you doing? And then the sharing starts after the human contact starts. That was really blew me away, because I didn't even know there was any gift-based economies that actually existed in the world. I thought it was all like a historic thing from the Dayak tribes in Borneo, which is where I first originally discovered the concept. And to find that what happens is everyone starts sharing, instead of exchange going like this, when you gift, someone feels empowered and it starts to go like that, and everyone just starts sharing everything, and everything's abundant. Yeah, and everyone becomes closer together. So that was really inspiring for me, and it was an affirmation that gift-based societies and an anarchistic society where there is no rules or structure and everyone's free and open and able to do whatever they want
Well, there is a
would be
rule
an
that there are
excellent
no
place
rules.
to.
There is a rule that there are no rules, and there is a rule not that it's a gift coin.
What do you mean?
The Burning Man, they have rules, big rules.
They're not rules. They're not rules though. People still go and do what they want. Some people won't, ignore the philosophy and go and sell stuff or whatever. There's people coming in now that have turnkey camps that you can pay $30,000 and you get like a masseur and your own RV. It's a total corruption of the model. No one's enforcing or policing these things. They're not rules. It's just a philosophy, and there's a general consensus based on this philosophy. And gift economics is just one of them. There's others like radical inclusion. Don't ever exclude anyone from anything. So if you walk up to a group, they'll, it's like, hey, how are you? And everyone's welcoming to one another. So yeah, it was totally life changing, totally mind blowing, and a real affirmation that we can have these things in the world. We can live that way, and really hope that. Cryptocurrencies and decentralization of currency can help bring about more of a gift-based society.
The Burning Man's spreading to other countries as well. It's happening in South Africa and Australia.
That's cool. So that's all. That's all I have to share.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for that. Well, that brings us to the end of our time, folks. Just to wrap things up, if you have any story ideas, please check out the Bitcoins in Bali group on Facebook. And as I mentioned before, we do have the Bitcoin 101s coming up, the first one in English on the 11th, and the second one in Bahasa Indonesia on the 18th. Please come or tell your friends about it. And we will be right back here next Tuesday. Same time, 6 o'clock. We do it every week. And in the meantime, we'll see you online. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.